Well, let's actually hear a song from Passing Strange, and the song is Arlington Hill. And the song appears in the first city out of 3 in the musical. And the song Arlington Hill, just to give setup, and then we'll talk about it, we have the protagonist youth in a cramped car with his church choir director and his fellow choir misfits. And there's a joint circulating, and there's an epiphany that ensues. So let's listen to a little bit of Arlington Hill.
If you can hear it. It's kind of loud in here. Trying to figure out what that was from, whether it was from the CD or from the live thing.
It's from the cast recording.
Okay.
Yeah. Where is Arlington Hill?
Arlington Hill is a hill in LA that's sort of like in South Central, where never did what is in that song. We never did that on Arlington Hill. That's just fiction. It's a hill that goes like this. And so when I was when I was like 5, 6, 7, my dad would just drive down that hill very fast, and it would be like this exciting sort of feeling, And so while it is true, I did go around with my choir friends and my choir director to get high in various parts of South Central. We didn't do that on Arlington Hill because we would have been too exposed. But Arlington Hill is just this kind of thing symbolic. If you say Arlington Hill to anybody, like my age in LA, it pretty much means the street where your dad drove you really fast down. Like a roller coaster, kind of like a free roller coaster, sort of. So the idea of, drugs and this roller coaster and this happy kind of feeling, and this connection between drugs and religion, which did kind of exist with some of the people that I grew up around.
You sing this line in the song, describing looking out, and you say Adams and Crenshaw is beautiful.
Yeah.
And it really sticks out to me, and I think about representations of South Central LA and having this kind of negative harshness so much that the city has rebranded the neighborhood to just South Los Angeles. So it really sticks out. And
I'm glad. I'm really glad, because that was the whole point. That's the most subversive thing you can really say. I mean, that's the most subversive thing on the whole record, is to say Adams and Crenshaw is beautiful, because exactly what you said, everyone has this association that it's just, boys in the hood. But the truth about South Central is that it actually is beautiful. That's actually what's so bizarre about it, because South Central in the daytime, now it's changed, but from when I was running around there, even though it could be dangerous at night, in the daytime, the lawns were nicely manicured and the grandmas were on the porch and they had flowers and everything was nice, but these grandmas also had nephews. And when it got late, then the nephews would come out. And then the texture of the neighborhood and the night would change. And then you would go to South Central the next morning and the grandmas would kind of take it over again. But yes, at night it could often be a different place. But to me, that's what's interesting about LA in specific and California in general, It's about light and dark in California. Things look nice and they look very beautiful, and sometimes those beautiful things can be dangerous. Our best sunsets in Los Angeles happen when there's a smoggy day. That's when you get the purples and the oranges and the really rich colors. And you see these sunsets and you go, oh my God, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life, which is caused by this completely toxic air, you know? That's LA to me, you know, in a nutshell.
In the musical, shortly after this, the protagonist leaves for Europe, and there are these really rich references to cultural figures who are expats, African-American cultural figures.
Yeah.
James Baldwin, Josephine Baker, Richard Wright. And I'm just curious to hear more about these influences, not just on Passing Stranger, but in your life too.
Yeah, I learned about these writers before I could read them, really. My teachers in elementary school it was a very, I guess, about as activist as you could be in elementary school. The teachers, I mean, because, you know, it was like, we were like, what, I'm born in 61, so like, you know, when I was 7, 8, and 9, things were happening in the United States. Very significant things were happening, and the teachers would talk about these things. And including busing. Busing was happening as well. But all of my teachers, all of whom who seemed to be women who were black and about 7'1", and very imposing, they all kind of sounded like Angela Davis and Toni Morrison, and they basically instilled you with this fear that you had to be good in school, because basically sort of like Martin Luther King died for your sins. I mean that in the funny way and also in a very serious way, you know. And so they told us that there was this place where people like James Baldwin and Richard Wright, and they said the names. They told us the names. We couldn't read them yet, but they told us the names. And they said there's a place where people like Dexter Gordon, like jazz musicians, go and get treated like human beings. And so Europe, to me, as early as age 10 or 9, maybe even 8, was this sort of like, you know, sort of like Valhalla, this kind of heaven in a way. And then I would ask my father, is this true? Because my father liked jazz, and he would say, yeah, you know. And they always talked about, you know, Jimmy Baldwin wrote and finished these great novels, you know, in Sweden and in Paris and in, you know, and Chester Himes and Dexter Gordon, you know, went to Paris to play, and you could walk down the street, and, you know, and the way James Baldwin wrote about walking down the street in Europe, and it was just this kind of freeing kind of thing. And so we grew up having not really read. Of course, when you read Baldwin, then he gives you the light and the dark of Europe. But when our teachers wanted us to feel like there was something else than LA. They really wanted us, and they knew there was a dark side as well, but they wanted us to grow up feeling like there was something else. And I completely bought into it. And I'm so glad I did, because I grew up feeling like there was something else. You know, when I used to watch TV, I would always be like, that's someplace that's not here, and I want to be there. Even The Odd Couple, when The Odd Couple, and then the taxi would show up, I was like, I want to be in New York, because I want to be in a taxi. Or like the Rice-A-Roni commercial would come on. Rice-A-Roni commercial. I'm going old, I'm 49. You guys don't even know what I'm talking about. The Rice-A-Roni commercial would come on, and there'd be a guy hanging off of a streetcar, in San Francisco. But I want to be there. I just wanted to be everywhere. I wanted to be, because my teachers told me it was better. And that's the story of black folks. That's the story of Irish folks. There's a potato famine. Let's get the fuck out of here. You know? That's the story of America. Some shit is going down. Let's get out of here. Jews in Germany, blacks down south. I'm going to Chicago. Sorry, but I can't take you. You know, it's like that's the story of us, all of us, everybody. You know, none of us started in Ann Arbor. You know, and those of us did. They have another story to tell. But sorry, I tend to ramble. I'm sorry.
No, you gotta just flow. So, as a 10 or 11-year-old. Is this something that then you say in your head, okay, I will leave, or is it just at that time offering kind of an escape psychologically?
No, I didn't like go out and read about Europe the way I know. I had geeky friends that like read about. I didn't want to read about Paris. I just wanted to go there. I didn't want to read. I didn't read anything. I didn't read anything about Europe. I was reading all those stupid things that any 10-year-old boy would be reading. But I didn't want to study it. I just wanted to go there. And as soon as I mean, I actually went to New York first, you know, sort of like, we wrote a lot of stuff about New York that might have been included in Passing Strange, but our director thought, nah, just go straight to Europe, and we were like, okay, you're probably right. So, but no, it was all about getting out of here, to prove that maybe there was a more interesting, better place.
The narrative and also the songwriting really plays with this idea of autobiography. How much of that is helpful for you in the songwriting and performance process?
Wow, that's a really good question. I don't know if I can answer it properly or give a good answer. We learned pretty early on that, you know, it was an autobiographical piece for about a week and a half, and then we realized that A, nobody's life is that interesting, and B, it just didn't. It seemed like the things we wanted to tell, the points we wanted to make, didn't really have anything to do with my life in specific. They had to do with us. And I mean, you know, Heidi and I share this situation of growing up in Los Angeles and going to punk rock clubs, you know, and going, you know, again, wanting to just be out. She wanted to be out of, you know, Orange County to go to Hollywood to go to rock clubs, and I used to I was looking for a friend that would go to punk rock clubs with me because I was only black. I knew I'd be the only black guy there, and so it's always about like looking for your tribe, and then find your tribe, and then go somewhere with them, you know. So the autobiographical thing, I guess, is just great and important because I did have a lot of stuff to draw on. Nothing that happens in Passing Strange happened exactly that way, but every single thing that happened in Passing Strange is based on something actual. We didn't make anything up in that respect. We just took the reality and tweaked it in order to tell.
Yeah, and I was going to say that the semi-autobiographical thing works the way we did it, because we're a band on stage, and Stu is this real guy, and he's looking at the audience, and we wanted to keep that thing where Stu's talking to the audience, and he's really going, I'm here, and I'm talking to you, and every night is a little different, and it's real.
It's a rock thing, actually.
But then, you know, of course, the story is messed with, but it's still like he's a real guy telling you stuff.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point, because that's like rock narrative, like this way of like when a rock singer is on stage, or a rapper or whoever, and they're singing a song, you're constantly processing, going, how much of this actually happened on an unconscious level or maybe conscious level? How much of this happened and how much of it didn't? But you're not bothered by the fact that maybe some of it is fiction and some of it isn't. You're accepting the story in that moment, whether it's John Lennon or you know, Chuck D. You're accepting the story. And I think what she's saying is really important, why we called, you know, I wasn't called Stu, I was called narrator. But narrator doesn't mean I'm not Stu. Narrator just means I'm this guy who's the MC, basically, who's just like the guy who's hosting you for the evening. But that is something that's cool about rock and roll to me, and about that kind of music, is that the narrative doesn't have to be on the nose. It can be kind of loosey-goosey, you know. So like, what do they call it in theater? The what kind of narrator? The narrator you can't trust. What is it termed? What? The unreliable narrator. Exactly. That is the essence of rock and roll. You never really know, you know, if Gloria ever came up to Van Morrison's apartment. But what's great about it is he certainly sings like he's excited about her coming up to his apartment. You know, and that's what you feel. You're not really concerned if she actually came there. What's more the point of that song is that listen to how excited he is. That's the story, really. The story is in the music, really, you know. It's not about, and then Gloria came over and we discussed politics, and then after a while she took her clothes off. No. You know, he just says her name over and over and over, and he spells it. Then he spells it, you know, I mean, because he's just consumed by this woman. You know, I mean, that's storytelling to me.